I'm Bob from Hawkwork Hardware, and in this video I'm going to talk about my philosophy for System 1 and how I hope it'll prove to be more than just a bunch of new hardware products. The idea for System 1 came to me 3 years ago while I was rebuilding an organ for a customer. I had a number of inquiries from various potential customers, all from different countries, and all wanting to rebuild or mend failed or end-of-life organs that either they owned themselves or were owned by their church. It was unusual that so many inquiries were received in the space of just a few days. I think maybe YouTube must have favoured me that week and suggested my videos to people who were looking to get their instruments repaired. However, the big takeaway for me was that only one of these inquiries was from somebody who was able to tackle the job of rebuilding their instrument personally. The rest all asked me the same question: do you have someone local to me who could do this work and install your products for me? And the answer to this question was only if you're based in the UK, which was a disappointment to all of them. It got me thinking though. Obviously, my core business is selling my products online via the website, and, thankfully, that provides me with a reasonable living. On top of this, I used to rebuild organs on site for UK customers, and that was satisfying on a number of levels. But since it required staying in hotels and travelling, as well as long working days, I decided to stop providing on-site services. I still do rebuilds for customers, but now I have them arranged for their instruments to be transported to my workshops, where I carry out the work. The transportation costs are actually comparable to the accommodation and travelling costs, so the model still works. But anyway, going back to my story of these inquiries from people who wanted someone to do what I was doing, but in their own country, I started thinking about how I could maybe help with that. So first, would anyone want to do the work of fitting my products into old or failed organs for people as a job? I know a few of my customers have used local techs to do the work for them, but these techs usually turn out to be people that are either family members or friends already known to the owner of the faulty organ. Some customers who have contacted me and asked for details about my products have been very nice and totally up for doing the work themselves. But while speaking with them, it's quickly become obvious that they had no aptitude or understanding of the tasks that they would need to perform in order to use my products. In these cases, I advised them to contact a local tech and ask them to do the work for them. But in all cases, I never heard back from them, and they didn't end up ordering anything. So I must assume that they never went ahead with the work. I think there's a reason for this though. If you look at it from the tech's point of view, they're being asked to work on equipment that they have probably not ever worked on before. They're being asked to install electronics which they almost certainly have never seen before, and they have no knowledge of what they're even trying to achieve. The only information they have, in fact, is the customer's often vague description of what they're trying to achieve. Think about it like this. How many techs have ever seen a virtual organ setup compared to how many have worked on a TV set or home entertainment system? These guys already earn a comfortable living working in that field, so why would they want to take on a job that they barely understand, that will take days to complete, and then they have to make it all work and guarantee it once it's completed? If I were a tech in that position, I would need to charge a considerable sum of money in order to cover my time required to spend learning, and then the risk of taking on a job I have limited knowledge about. Add to that the fact that all the work required will be on site, either in a church or the customer's home, and that is the reason I think most techs refuse to do this kind of work. It simply isn't worth it for them. So what can be done? Clearly not all owners of failed organs are capable or even desirous of rebuilding them themselves. Many churches also have this problem. But the fact that my existing products sell reasonably well worldwide suggests that there are a fair number of people who are capable and willing to work on reviving these old organs. I thought long and hard about all this, for several months actually, before I began to form an idea of a possible solution. I wanted to turn this situation around and create a solution that would benefit more than just the customer. Previously, I'd looked at franchising Hawkwork hardware so that the products and crucially the services that I provide here in the UK could be made available to everyone worldwide. Sadly though, the legal costs and the many regulations spread across the many countries made this a non-starter. It would literally have cost millions to set up. Thinking about this latest problem though, rekindled my thoughts on making everything more accessible outside of the UK. I thought, there must be people who are interested in virtual organ technology, who are able to learn about this technology, at least to a competent level, and able to physically install it. And I think it's reasonable that once they learn these necessary skills, that they should be allowed to profit from them. So I figured, why not let them become a reseller, and then train them to become a competent installer, so that they can do exactly that in their own country. I started looking at potential markets in different countries. Would any of this actually be worth it? Are there enough potential customers to make becoming an installer or reseller worthwhile to anyone? Well, there are less than 20,000 churches here in the UK, and I always seem to have plenty of work. So let's look at the numbers. According to Google, there are 38,500 Christian churches here in the UK. But there are also 11,400 in Australia, 150,000 in the United States, 500,000 in Europe, and a massive 1.2 million Christian churches in Africa. Since I've sold my products to all of these places, I think it proves that people everywhere are definitely interested in saving their old instruments. So following on from the idea of helping people learn the skills to install my products and save these old organs, I think it makes sense to provide these potential installers with favourable pricing so that they can also profit from being able to sell my products to customers in their country without having to charge import taxes and tariffs, as well as being able to offer the goods at a discount. In other words, I'm looking to pass the profit, or at least some of it, to what could be described as channel partners. This makes sense because I am just one person located in one place. I can only do so much in one day. But this way I can distribute product to a bunch of installers or partners, and they can then deal directly with their local customers. It saves on international shipping costs and taxes and tariffs for the end customer, as well as decreasing air miles for the products. So how can all this work in practice? If you've been following my series of videos about System 1, you will have seen that everything has been designed for ease of use. The boards are all bigger than they really need to be from a technology point of view. I could easily miniaturise everything and use tiny boards and connectors for the entire system. That will make much more sense and make them cheaper to produce. But that would also make them harder to use for people new to electronics, especially for people who are perhaps not as young as they once were and maybe lack the eyesight and dexterity that they once had. So basically I designed the entire system so that as many people as possible would be able to use it. Also, I believe that System 1 is the only system worldwide which is designed specifically to address the needs of organs as opposed to other generic MIDI applications. General or generic MIDI products are available much cheaper than any System 1 products, but they are, in my opinion, much harder to use in an organ setting, and, outside of the instruction manual, there doesn't appear to be much support available from other MIDI product manufacturers, especially in terms of organ builds. So System 1 is there specifically to address the issues found in rebuilding organs. It is made to be as easy as possible for people to use, and I provide free YouTube videos which show you how to use it. So how much does it cost? Well, I've based the pricing on what I charge a customer on average here in the UK to rebuild their organ. Usually that is between £4,000 and £5,000 depending on the model and the features desired. The hardware cost of a rebuild is usually around £2,000 to £2,500, which obviously leaves between £2,000 and £2,500 for the installation work. The System 1 hardware prices are now available by looking at the System 1 products in the Hawkswork Hardware web shop. These prices are, as I have said, not cheap, but they are fair given the amount of resource that was required to create them and their supporting media. But I have said that I want to be able to provide System 1 to as many people as possible so that they can share in the profit from installing them, as well as simply supplying them to people in their own countries. The proposal then is that there will very soon be a very comprehensive training package available which can be purchased from the Hawkswork Hardware web shop. This will consist of both text as well as video based presentations which will take a suitable novice to the level of knowledge required to competently and confidently supply and install any of my products. Once someone has purchased the training package, they will be entitled to a permanent 40% discount on all Hawkswork Hardware products over the value of £100. They will be entitled to set their own pricing for their customers, which allows them to balance their profit against their sales volume. In other words, if they sell the product locally at 90% of the Hawkswork Hardware webshop price, they make 30%, and the customer gets 10% off the web price, as well as saving on international shipping costs, import taxes and tariffs. Equally, a reseller could sell their product for 70% of the web price, so only making a 10% profit, but they will then be able to offer the customer 30% off, as well as saving on shipping and taxes. That would be likely to increase their sales volume, and so the reseller makes up the percentage loss by means of increased sales. The reseller will also be entitled to a profile page on another website, theorganrebuildcompany.com. They can then use this to promote themselves in their own country, as well as any other marketing they may want to do. Sadly though, it is a fact that not everyone will be able to absorb and remember all the information presented in the training package and become skilled and competent enough to install these products. So to be fair to all, in the case that somebody buys the training but later decides that it is not for them, they have two options. Either they can keep the training materials and continue to receive the discount, thus allowing them to become a reseller only, or they can return the training materials for a full refund within 28 days and forfeit their right to any further discounts. I think that is the fairest way for everyone, as most of us are able to evaluate our feelings towards learning a new subject fairly quickly, so 28 days should work, I think. So that is my intention, and that is why I created System 1. I sincerely hope that you agree that it's been worth it. I also hope that this will help more people in more ways than if I had just made another line of MIDI products. So let me know in the comments if you think I've done the right thing, and if you have any suggestions as to how I might be able to improve in any of it. But for now, this is the end of this video, and also the end of the System 1 video series. I'm going to have a few weeks off from making videos now, because this has been full on for me for a long time, and I think I deserve a short break. So thanks for watching and for sticking with the System 1 series, and I'll see you in the next video.